Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm your host, Stephen Topham at the third. We're going to be talking about the setup, right? Which is basically how I got set up, right? A lot of you know that the setup can be done in different directions, not just the letter. Obviously, this is a continuation of what we were talking about. How it was done, how it was perceived, how it was well planned out, setting up one individual for many mistakes, right? They couldn't do that on me because I was the third gen fat controller, Stephen Topham at the third. But what they didn't even know what was ahead of them, right? The diesel team thought they were one step ahead of me. No, 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 no. I was one step ahead of them. Why? You have to be one step ahead of the diesel team. Diesel team had four members, right? Right? A lot of people are like the community, the employees, the volunteers, all got abused and sworn, cursed at, and everything. Right? You need to understand how that setup was done because it was a setup, it was a lie, it was a deceit, it was everything. Right? All in one bucket. Right? People are not going to take that. Right? Because that's also setting up a disabled person is wrong in every direction, right? When it comes down to me, it's like I'm saying, yeah, right, how do we set up a disabled person, right? You can't do that. It's against the law, right? I'm going to tell you how they done it without me interfering. Now, a lot of you know I've got private connections, family, friends, and colleagues, right, at the time in 2019. It does show the actual reason how they set me up. Good and proper, right? Well, let me take this in better way for you to understand. There's four individuals in the diesel team, right? Not the steam team, the diesel team, because all the steam team were all innocent, plus myself, right? So the diesel team thought, okay, we got Devious Diesel, who was in the office, doing all getting everybody booted out bit by bit, right? Then his wife also do part of the job as well. And then you're ending up with Daisy, which is number three, obviously. And then you finalise it with Hugh Harkett, who is Sydney. But Sydney is not always around and he can't fame anyone because he's always somewhere else. Right? Devious Diesel, which is Andrew Mudden, I went into the office one day, right? So, well, this is how the chain reaction happened and how they got me out of the station and kept me out of the station and banned me from the premises. Right? You have to realise if it wasn't Devious Diesel may have all the employees and volunteers' names all on list, right? I asked him a private question in the office. What are you doing with these employees and volunteers and so forth? Oh, they got problems and problems and problems, he quoted. Right? That was a load of BS, right? We knew that. But then you got to work out that then the volunteers and the employees started to get sworn and cursed at. So it couldn't be done by me because I'm not always on the platform. So what does happen when the setup has occurred? Think about it. Think about it logically. If Devious Diesel was in the office, he couldn't do all the actions, right? You got his wife, obviously, and Daisy. Who Arquette, Sydney, was not involved at that time. So keep it in mind. This is just before I was booted out. So work it out. Do your calculations in your head. Work it out. Sydney only approved what he sees and he believes it. Right? He wasn't always on the platform. He can't prove that I was doing all the setup. Excuse my French. or the way it was set up, excuse my language, the setup was if Hugh Harkett didn't do it, or Andrew Mudden was in his office doing the dirty work, excuse my French, but that's how he did it, visibly, and then you're wondering why. Why did Andrew Mudden have piles of people's names, employees, volunteers, and all that, who did good service for the North Norfolk Railway? We're not talking about me in general, but the thing is, it piled up. And I quoted and I asked them, what are you doing with these volunteers and the employees? What have they got against you? Basically, it's another term saying he will lie, he will be deceitful, and he'll be lying, whatever next, right? Then his wife is on outside on the platform doing the job she was meant to do, and then talk about saying, "Oh, right, boom, boom, boom," going down the line. I won't go into detail, but there's something about this. This setup was no ordinary setup. So if I wasn't always on the platform while all of this badass problem occurred, right? All the volunteers and the employees that were sworn at, cursed out, that wasn't for me. So you have to work out who would be devious to do that, but not make me take the blame for it. You can't do that because I wasn't on the platform. Just keep me in the check, right? You're ticking me off right now and establishing that how can Matthew or Stephen Topham Hatt got this problem? He never did this problem. He wasn't there. He wasn't the witness. He couldn't prove anything and say, look, he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that. Well, there was one person that could just do that type of action with, without me being on the premises. So work it out. You have the North Norfolk Railway running during the day. All I'm doing is being friendly, connected, really useful, and everything else, right? Keep my contacts and connections in private direction to a point. And then this is where I'm gonna say the full setup, right? There's a stage one, a stage two, and a stage three, right? Before Hugh Harkett approved everything that was unfolding, right? Or didn't see what was unfolding, but actually saw what Devious Diesel's dirty work was. So work it out. Go keep right. Let him. Right, he was doing that. Right, to stab everyone in the back. Right. Then he thought, I'll get somebody else to take the blame. He couldn't do it because I wasn't on the platform all the time. Right. So what happens? One day, obviously, if you like to call it correctly, there was there was actually someone else within the premises that would have done all the dirty work, all the cursing, all the swearing, and telling whatever, right? How I worked it out, how I got set up, right, is that one of the Diesel team members is the prime suspect. I'm not saying, like, usually it will go through Diesel, everybody else, but through the verbal and the physical abuses is no, it's false information. How? You got four suspects. Think about it. If Hugh Harkett wasn't there to witness it, he can't prove it and said, "Oh, I accept that. I believe it." Right? That's wrong. So he made the wrong move. Davis Diesel did all the dirty work, yes, to a point. Then, if it wasn't his wife that was doing all half the dirty work, then who else would it be? There's only one suspect on the list, Daisy. So work it out. Then the truth is there, the facts are there. So what happened in stage one when the volunteers and the employees got physically and verbally abusive? And I wasn't on a platform in any shape or form. So work it out. If I didn't do it, Right? What happened? Daisy was physically, verbally abusive, but she wanted somebody else to take the blame. So when she approached me before I start doing my washing up day in the buffet area, which is true, right? She told me you either come in or you can F off, right? I proved her wrong and I done it the next day, right? Really useful. So, while all of that was being cozy, nicey for me the next day, people always cared about me. They always respect me, regardless of all the hard work that I done that day. Everybody did worry about me, not to the high extent because they know me inside and out. They would not abuse me and say, no, he did a good job that day. No, less that one of them did. But I had to keep my mouth shut because he's my private connection, a friend of the family, right? You got to realise Daisy abused and verbally abused, physically and verbally abused volunteers and staff at the North Norfolk Railway. Right? Well, I took the blame for it, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't my fault. So work it out. Go down the chain. You have Devious Diesel doing all the paperwork. You've got his wife and Daisy doing all the platform work, which is what I call it. I come in, I did not do nothing wrong. Now work that out. Doesn't add up, does it? So you got Daisy and you got Devious Diesel's wife and Devious Diesel. What do? It's a three-stage pattern here, right? It's a pattern at work, right? It's not my fault. I took the full blame, but it wasn't my fault. Work it out. What did Devious Diesel do and his wife and Daisy do, and then report it to who Harkett, who is Sydney, right? Sydney believes everything he sees. He's not actually concentrating and realizing that it's false information all the way through. It doesn't matter if it was verbally, physically, or whatever. What happened? People know I was innocent, right? This is where it goes back to sweeping under the carpet, the true story. This is the true story. Let's set up. So what happens? Everything goes directly to only three people, right? Three individuals. And it's not me or my mother or Duck. You can't blame any of us because that is that is we are innocent as we come. Right? Two really useful, helpful, bang. What do you get? Right? The setup is similar. So what happens when you got Hugh Harkett, Andrew Mugden, his wife and Daisy on top? What happens? Daisy did all the abusing. Daisy did all the verbal communication business. So work it out. If I didn't do it, she did. Why? She then wants somebody else to take the fall for everything she did wrong. If she told me to F off if you don't come into right, when she told me you either come into work or you can F off. Right? That's a simple quote from her. Directly. Then she used that on everybody else. Work it out. The pattern repeats for her. So what happens? If she couldn't have her own way, it's like I say, bang! One bad egg affects all. Right? I wasn't always on the platform. So what happens when it all goes pear-shaped in the dicky bow? People ask now who's in trouble? But Devious Diesel gets the main blame because he was he was trying to boot you out. He was trying to get rid of you guys inside and out. This is in 2019, the very hot spot. Oh yeah, right. Let's get rid of these employees. Let's get rid of the volunteers. bing bada boom, right? It doesn't take a genius to work out how I was set up. I knew the victim, I know all the people that got booted out verbally or physically or whatever next, and then you got booted out, right? Regardless, that was hard on you guys, it was hard on everybody. Yeah, of course the setup was a bad thing, right? You have to be realistic to yourself. It wasn't Sir Stephen Topham had the third um, problem at all. He wasn't always on the platform, but he's always kind-hearted and caring and very supportive. What happens? So now you realise how the setup has occurred. It's gone from Divas Diesel, his wife, and Daisy, and they all played their part. Bing, bada, boom, bang, 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 right to the bottom. Right? People are gonna start wondering who they can trust on that railway. The North Norfolk Railway is not trustable at the moment. They can't be trusted because the management are putting everything under the carpet, because you can listen to it any other way. Then people ask, there are four suspects. We know who Harcourt believes whatever he sees he says he believes. It's basically saying, oh, I saw that letter, I believe it. Right? He hasn't got no recognition or proof to say that I did what I did, right? The setup was done by Daisy and Divas Diesel's wife. But Divas Diesel did all the booting out through the office. So when all the polls names were all listed, employees, the volunteers, who did they make them blame? Think about it. If I wasn't always on the platform, would what would happen? You got to look at it logically. It's a very good point here, right? There are people that will go to arms and length to sort this out in one swing. It's a true story and it's not a lie, right? You're dealing with people that are on basically the people that work employee wise and volunteer wise, the people that got abused and sworn at wasn't my doing. I was innocent, completely, fully innocent. So work it out. So if you know that Duck was innocent and you know I was innocent because I was doing another job to clear my name, what happens when Daisy got away with murder? You got Divas Diesel that got away with murder and his wife. Work it out. Then who Harket takes everything that's believable. Basically, he's a gullible man that don't know what he's doing. He's basically took one truth, and then what he's done is anybody that got booted out with verbal or physical abuse, then what they do is they target one individual out of the whole team and then use me as a guinea pig and said, you did all these things. I said, that's a load of, it's a lie, lie, lie. Why? Because the setup was definitely cleared up when I was thinking about this for over 6 years and a plus. Why? It's going to get build up and all the truth will come eventually setting you free. Right? It's going to end up saying Daisy done it because she's the one who does all the abusive stuff. She's the one that did it all physically and the one that does it verbally. I, a lot of you volunteers and staff know that I would not abuse you at any cost, right? So with Davis Diesel, Andrew Mudden doing all the dirty paperwork, think about it. Dirty paperwork or dirty work. Now what does that remind you of? He grasses people up. So work it out. Then it goes all through to Duck story in the end, does it? Isn't it? But you've got to work out why is Daisy in this time round. Think about it. There's a truth, there's a logic, and the respect. Right? When things unfold in front of you, the stories tend to repeat themselves for obvious reasons. But you got to acknowledge, if Dirk wasn't set up this time, why was the third gen Stephen Topham Hatt the third got got targeted this time? Big, you see, what you're seeing is basically this trap, right? The setup was done by three people. Hugh Harkett, or Sydney, was caught in the middle of it. He believed everything he sees. He's not acknowledging that he saw it with his own eyes. He can't blame me because he wasn't there to begin with. So what happens? Then you got Davis Diesel and his wife, and then you got Daisy, right? Three more to go, right? So you need to work it out, right? How did they set nearly all of us up and boot us, every one of us out? You talk about 1,000 volunteers and employees and myself. Why? You need to start realizing, if Stephen Topham Hatt the third didn't say all these things, who did? The people that got hurt by this, right? You know who the criminal is. You know who the suspect is, right? We know that Davis Diesel's using his same trick twice. Right? He can't do that. He's already done it, and he's left the building and he's gone home. He won't come back to the Norfolk Railway ever again. Why? Because he will make the same mistake again the second time, and I'm ready for him when he returns. But this time, because it's third gen, he's going to tell that story to the steamies about the bad apple. Right? That bad apple will take effect at some point. But you got to realize how it's set up in the first place. So when originally set up, yes, of course it targeted Gordon, Henry, and James, like it originally set up in the first generation and the second generation. But the third generation gets a different kit. Why? Because with Hugh Harkett that doesn't see anything, he can't say to the police and say, "Oh, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that." Yeah, well, he didn't see it, number one, and number two, he didn't actually understand the full nature of the problem. And at the end of the day, he's ending up with Davis Diesel, Joe Mugden, and Daisy. So who screwed up? All three of them. Why? Because Sydney has a little bit of support for Thomas and myself. Why? Just think about it logically, right? How did the third generation, myself, Sir Topham Hatt the third, got set up by three people? Davis Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. But because you're looking at it from another angle, you're looking at it from another straight angle, and it's based on truth and fact and everything else. You got to establish, I would not target any employee or volunteer that was been sworn or cursed at and everything. They all got booted out, but it wasn't my doing. That's the catch. So everybody's asking, who's the bloody suspect in all of this? You had four, but there was only three main ones. So you're ending up with Davis Diesel, Andrew Mudden, and then you're ending up with Joe Mudden, and then you're ending up with Daisy. Daisy caused most of the problems. So you have to realise why. The setup was done in a good way, but made one big error. Why? Because I'm not always on the platform. Think about it. A lot of people know it's the truth, what's coming out of my mouth. They acknowledge the fact that the setup was done by three bloody people. Excuse my French. But it's made a better point why Hugh Harkett got all muddled up in his head and said, "Oh, I believe that. I'll let you sign that." Bang. Right? He believed the verbally and physically abusive part, plus the voluntary license and being banished from the premises. Right? Out of the whole letter, most of it is a complete lie. Why? 95.9, 99.9% of it is a lie because it was set up by three individuals. Think about it. It all makes sense when it goes from stage one, stage two, then stage three. Why? The setup was done by Davis Diesel, which is his normal dirty work. Then Joe Mudden on top of that. Then Daisy. Why? I know they're the three prime suspects, that's for sure, and they can't lie to the cops on this one. So work it out like it was going forward. Are you prepared to know this is part of Duck's story and everybody else and myself? Why? They thought they swept it under the carpet by just telling you how they set it up to make it go so far like the way they did. So what happened? Davis Diesel did the dirty work, right? Thought he could blame Gordon, Henry, and James, which they couldn't. So well, who did they blame? Me for everything. So if I wasn't verbally or physically abusive to all my volunteers and then all my employees, why did they came back to me and said I was innocent? Because a lot of what came into that letter was falsified, and the cops would not allow a falsified information. So, with that being said, the three prime suspects is Devious Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. Why was Hugh Harkett involved? Regardless that he's Sydney, why did he get involved in something that wasn't completely true on that letter? He could have actually said, "Okay, it's time." He should, if he knew that Daisy was doing certain things, Joe Mudden was doing certain things, like Davis Diesel, Davis Diesel, who's Andrew Mudden, doing bigger things than what he should not do. This is why people were sworn at, cursed at, and everything, not on the premises by me. I was not guilty. Why? Because the setup was done from the inside of a building, not outside the building. I would never hesitate to look. I was trying to be safeguarded on that premises, regardless of who was employed there. Why did people want to know my private information, my details, or what I know? Why they can't have that information because it's classified half the time. But I'm telling you right now, right? The setup can only be as good as the false information they provided to me. So the false information I got was being physically and verbally abusive, which was a total lie. They could take away my voluntary license, that's not a problem. But do does any of us win as like togetherness? No. Banning me from the premises? No. Because they ain't not gaining anything, nor am I. So they lost anyway. Work it out. They try to tell me I was physically and verbally abusive. Where's the living proof? It's been a lie to the cops, and it's been lied to me. So we both got the lie, and we got the truth as well. Why? The setup was done by Devious Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. Why? If you know this was unfolding correctly like it should, who screwed up in the end? Daisy did. She did. Daisy did. Why? Because she was the verbal and physical, let's say, abusive. Alright? So I took the abusive as well. So I wasn't the only one. So I was like saying, okay, she did that on me. She's gonna hit all my employees and volunteers on top. And what will happen is the Divas Diesel and Joe Mudden will safeguard her by saying, let's blame Matthew for slash Stephen Topham Hatt the third. Why? Because they always take out the weakest opponent out when I was actually the actual sensible one. So work it out. The day that I came onto the platform, right, there was a reason why they set me up good and popular the way they did. When I know that all the volunteers and employees at the time of the North Norfolk Railway, right, they know I was innocent. They knew they didn't have to jump in, but they also said that Diesel, his wife, and Daisy were setting everybody up, good and proper, so they don't so they don't have rights to come back on the premises. So what happens? So you got all the suspects all listed, right? So everybody that was abusive, physically and verbally abusive, that's not me. So work it forward and realise it was Daisy's fault. The dirty work came from Deedless Diesel. So who's stuck in the middle? Joe Mudden, his wife. So work it out. A three-way pattern to set up an individual that's disabled and not able to fight back and do all of that. Do you know what? By by listening to their lies, the North Norfolk Railway itself is now vulnerable. Everybody's saying, "Oh, let's get volunteered here or volunteer here or volunteer there." No, don't volunteer there. Don't employ there, because in the day, once you realise that people getting booted out, verbally or physically abusive, both, don't come crying to me. I warned you so, because I saw all the volunteers and the employees of 2019 got booted out, but it wasn't my fault. It was down to Daisy. Daisy started it up, but Divas Diesel did all the dirty work. So work it out. The actual Thomas series helps you provide the answers. But if you're not going to get the answers from that, then you're going to end up with a sticky situation. So what happens when you get set up? You know it's Divas Diesel who started it all on me. Then it's Joe Mudden and Daisy. Then you're working out those two as accommodation, right? It's part of the dirty work as well. And then you're ending up with the finalisation that a lot of you physically, verbally abused by someone from that side of the team, not the steam team and not me personally. So that's the truth. It's a real life event. That's how the setup was. So you got Divas Diesel, at Joe Mudden, and then you got Daisy. What happens at the end, right? Now you're stuck in a bubble where you can't get out of it. You can't fix the problem that was there. You can't see the bigger picture. It's all truth. It's all logic. Yes, but I never cursed or sworn at in front of my former colleagues or employees. So work it out. Who ends up getting no laughing at all? No one would. Because I'm not laughing because I was set up. Duck couldn't take the blame. My mother knew the letter was a lie. I know it was a lie, and so did Duck. Why? Because we already seen this happen before. So the setup from the inside of the building of the North Norfolk Railway during the 2019 was that Stevie's Diesel had all a pile of all your names and everything else and booted every one of you out without without your establishment. Then you had Daisy on top being, I would not say repeatedly, but let's just say that you've been verbally abusive by her or physically abused by her, etc., and it's going down the pattern, and everyone was getting the same response, and then everybody's getting it differently as well on top, which I will add in the calculation, and then add up that she was a verbally and physically abusive one, because out of all of them, Divas Diesel was just doing the old stunt he did before. So what happened? When Divas Diesel said, "Oh, he wants," can you remember the time I told you specifically the setup was aimed at me, but at the same time he was making a disabled person take all the blame when I didn't even do anything, and I wasn't always on the platform. So with all the porters and the guards and everybody else on the North Norfolk Railway now actually taking all the lives, the setup was swept under the carpet. So this is why you need to go back a bit, and there's all there in black and white to say this is what is unfolded. So you know how I got set up. You know how they swept it under the carpet, and you're also establishing it with Duck's story on top. So work it out. Wake up, smell the coffee, and get a good routine. So you got the setup, but the main cause that Daisy was booted out, Divas Diesel was booted out, Joe Mudden was booted out, all the management is going. Why? Because the truth is now coming out. So if you know that Pooh Harker is Sydney is the one that said, "Oh, I believe that," and proved something that he shouldn't, what could he done better? I know he's got that personality where he's forgetful at times. Oh yeah, just keep in mind, I'm not the one who was cursing or swearing at anybody else in the premises. So they were lying to everybody saying that, oh, they blamed it all on me, but they didn't. Why? Because they know the real suspect is now. You see, they didn't target me because they knew I was innocent. So if they knew I was innocent, work out the mystery in this. This is one big package, but it's taking a little longer. Think about it. Someone who was who was totally set up from the bottom up. You had Devious Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. Now work it out. It's going by the chain of command for them, but in the day, all the management are going bye bye. Why? Because they don't want to work for the North Norfolk Railway. When they worked out the setup was the cause of the problem, they will work out the Divas Diesel did all the dirty work, and then they will work out that Andrew Mudden's wife was part of the package, and then is Daisy on top with her verbal and physical abuse. That's it. All of it in one bucket in one string. And that's the true story behind that setup. So, end of the day, Hugh Harkett for slash Sydney will reevaluate everything and realise what the major mess up was. And then he will end up, if he's still in charge, if he isn't, then people will start waking up and smelling the coffee now, won't they? When they realise that Daisy was the problem, Divas Diesel was the problem, and then adding Joe Mudden on top. Why? All the facts were all in the books, and you couldn't even tell the difference between right and wrong. That's the reason why the setup was aimed at me. So work it out. You have Divas Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. Why did Daisy cause more problems on the North Norfolk Railway? Think about it. She did a lot of verbal and she did a lot of physical abuse. So work it out. It's all three of them. So you got Diesel trying to boot me out the hard way round. His wife tried to do it on me. I said, back off, I told her. Why, do you know what? She ended up crying to her husband. Why? Because he's Stevie Diesel. So work it out. Then set me up, big time. What? Lied, lied, lied. Why? The paper, the letter that was given to me and my mother and the cops was a lie, a deceit. So work it out. Probably a lot of people have gone through the same bloody problem. And I'm not being rude. That's a real life event. That's why the setup occurred the way it did. But now I've just cleared my name. So, work it out. You had Divas Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. Who's got more verbal and communication and physical abuse on our hands? It's not it's not Divas Diesel. He does all the major talk, but trying to do the same trick twice. He couldn't do it the same trick twice. So work it out. You're ending up with that plus a little bit more and a little bit more on this. So work it out. You got Divas Diesel, his wife, and then Daisy. And then Sydney's just caught in the middle of it. Like I am. So work it out. It's a black and white story and it's the truth as well. I want bullshit. So when you look at that, just ask yourself a question. If you were working for the North Norfolk Railway today, are you getting verbally, physically abused? No, because we took the Daisy out. Daisy started it all. Divas Diesel just fills in the paperwork, all your, you know, booting outs, as they call it. It's the record of booting outs. And then people say, oh, we boot him out, or boot her out, boot him out, boot her out, boot him out, boot. It's going through the chain of command through them, right? And then what happens? Hugh Harkett can't do nothing because he was believing everything that Devious Diesel was doing. So what happened? You now got a big problem on your hands. Right? You got a lie on the North Norfolk Railway. Now you know the setup, you know the truth behind it all. I don't need to lecture anymore. Right? All I have to do is make sure you understand the real life event is not gonna break down. Why? Because the thing is, the setup was that they were trying to set me up because I was a vulnerable target. So work it out. You have Divas Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. And the Daisy is the one you want a bloody suspect, the prime suspect. And the other prime suspect is Divas Diesel. Why? Because they're two prime suspects. Right? Because they work together in pairs, pegs, a peg or two, as they call it. Because if you haven't got to read me between the lines by Christopher Audrey to understand the dirty work and how they work, I said two diesels work together. Think about it. When I say that, a peg or two. So work it out. The truth is there. When I said Divas Diesel and Daisy, work it out. What did Daisy do that wasn't meant to be on a platform? She really took it to the. She took it more higher than I did. I did not do nothing on the platform wrong. I didn't say nothing wrong. So work it out. Keep going forward like it would normally. What happened? Eventually, Joe Mudden came in between it all, yeah, trying to offer support, but I did not want it. Why? Because I knew what was unfolding. So work it out. A peg or two. Work it out. There's a reason why Devious Diesel and Daisy work well together. Why? Not because of relationship, that's the starters. Devious deeds. So work it out. So what happens to Daisy when she's now been caught out? It's too late for her now because Sydney's just booted her out for me. She won't come back to the North Norfolk rowing now, right? So you need to realise the setup was done the way it was meant to be shown. But the thing was, she wasn't included in Duck's story or any other part of the story. She was an add on because she was on a platform. See what I mean by I said there's loose ends need to tie up and recorrect? I said the setup was done by Divas Diesel and his wife and Daisy. So then by the time they booted out every Tom, Dick and every volunteer and employee, they end up with nothing in the end. So what happened? People that stayed ending up feeling guilty because they left with the problem that we all had when we got booted out. So work it out, go forward. The setup was Stevens Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. Hugh Harkett did nothing to do about it. All he sees is like any paperwork that was shown, he will believe it. Because he thinks he believes everything he sees, right? He's not going to understand the truth or a lie. So you got a verbally or physically abuse, but targeting me just to get the full blame for it? No, thank you. I'm not taking someone else's problem on my shoulders. No, thank you. It won't work. Right? Why? Innocent. You cannot. Right, when people get blamed for something they did not do, a lot of people that are nasty as that take it to the next level and say, oh, he's physically and verbally abusive, blah, blah, blah. That's a lie. A lie that was written and it was actually that, right? It's gone to the cops, it's gone to my mother, it's gone to my stepfather, Duck. It all adds up, the story. Same story, same add up. But why did Thomas a tank? This is why I'm repeating at the end now to make everybody understand. Why did Thomas a tank ending up being happy when Duck comes homecoming? Think about it. Duck returns home to timber sheds and Divas Diesel cries wolf. Why? He's already gone, hasn't he? He's not in charge, and nor is that. But if some influence has gone on to other employees or employers, bang, what happens? They all screwed up. Because the setup is what caused all of us to be booted out. So you couldn't blame me directly, but they made me take the blame anyway. Why? I wasn't always on a platform, my ad, and Duck is not always on a platform either. Why? Because we're both innocent, right? There's a lot of proof that you don't see. So if everybody says, oh, you did this and you did that, I said, no, I didn't. Why? Because I was honest with you, and then Divas Diesel wasn't. He was dishonest. And then you got Daisy on top. She was she was lying to you and being deceitful and actually out of order. She was more out of order than any one of us combined. Think about it. Being deceitful, lying, being verbally or physically abusive. That's Daisy. She set up a lot of people, don't get me wrong. But these individuals did not do nothing wrong. All they did was trying to get on with their jobs they are most good at, not the other way round. So what happens when Thomas the Tank comes home from and realises that Duck is coming home too with a happy face? Why? Just ask yourself that very hard question. It's very understandable. You had Divas Diesel, his wife, and Daisy. Why? So it narrows down all the suspects down to three instead of the extra four that we quoted on. Right, it's narrowed it down to 3. We know that Joe hasn't got much involvement in it unless he's got told, and then you're ending up with a peg or two. Think about it. Divas, Diesel, and Daisy. Think about it. There's a pattern there that you're not seeing. So you've got Divas, Diesel, and his wife, right? But there's actually Daisy and Divas, Diesel. Why? So while he did all the dirty work paperwork, that was false information, false details. All it is, it's just arguments in that office, right? The office that is normally locked. As you, when you come into Sheringham Station, right? There's an office that's locked, right? He's normally in there, mouth going in there. Let's say 2 people go in there. They will mouth off, blah 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 blah. You did this, you did that, you did this, you did that. People would not take it because the employees and volunteers at the time of in 2019 knew they were all innocent. Why? Because Diesel was trying to pull the same stunt that he did long time ago, and that's the reason why the setup occurred the way it went. When it came down to every employee and volunteer that was booted out, I got the full blame for that for nothing. So Devious Diesel, his wife, and Daisy, all suspects. The 3 primary suspects. Right? The cops will now have to reevaluate that letter and say it's false. So what happens to the Norfolk Railway when they realise they've been knowing how the setup went? Bang bang. Does prove a point, don't it? So while I know I'm innocent, it's because I wasn't verbally or physically abusive. I was just taking someone else's blame, which I didn't do. One day, right, the cops will look at that letter and realise it was false information. A setup, if you will. And that setup could have been avoided. So, if Hugh Harkett read it properly and look at my physical capability or my disabilities, as they call it, ding ding ding, they would say he's not none like that. Bang bang bang. No, what he sees is what believes made him believe whatever he sees he believes. Right? So it's not the same as saying no, I did not witness him do this on the platform. I did not see him do that on the platform. I did not do that. Do you know what? Because there were 1,000 volunteers, do you think I was going to aim at every each one of them? No, not even the volunteers or the staff. Think about it. I, Regardless that it was difficult times, and everybody thought, "Oh, he's guilty because of that." Let me tell you something. The letter was a complete fraud and a lie. And that was very deceitful as well. So for me to take the blame, someone else's blame, isn't right. You need to realise how it works and how it operates. Was not always on a platform, so you can't take I can't take the full blame for it, nor would I, in general. So when you think about it, like Daisy's involved in this, yes. Divas Diesel was involved, yes. But why was it wasn't in Duck's story? Why? Because now it's the third gens. So work it out going forward. Duck is still around, but he already knew that I was innocent. He knew he was innocent as well. My mother knew that we were both innocent. So you can't make the same trick twice in any of it. So wake up, smell the coffee, and realise it was Daisy's fault, it was Steven's Diesel's fault, and Joe Mudden's fault. Why? Because Hugh Harkett forced that Sydney would not understand from the truth from the false information. So the truth is now online for you to hear out and understand, but then you got to work out if if the Norfolk Railway's got this false information, right? So has the cops, and so have we. So in the day, the actual events of everybody being sworn out and cursed out and everything else, I believe that, but it wasn't done by me. That's because I know who's done it. Like I said, a lot of people will go to arms and length to try and clear my name. And I'll tell you now, every employee and volunteer that was sworn and cursed at by one of those individuals, because we're only talking about three here, and it would not be Devious Diesel because he'd be doing all the paperwork. It won't be Joe Mudden because obviously she's an NHS nurse and a former NHS nurse, may I add. It will all go back to Daisy. Why? Daisy has that ability to mouth off, right? She won't do it in front of cameras, and she won't. Every person that's scared of her, we end up hiding. Why? Daisy has a way of actually being verbally and physically abusive. So work it out. So, because if I'm not always on the platform, how can you prove that I've been on there to do it? Just think about it. The setup is there, and the whole truth is there. The letter is false, and the letter is false on the cops. The letter is false on my mother. What do you think is actually playing out, right? Think about it. I'm recorrecting it all, right? And telling people how the setup work. Why do you think I know so much and understand a lot more? Think about it. You have Davis Diesel, his wife, and Daisy, and they all set you up good and proper, and you don't even realise that the fact controller's got no involvement in it. Myself, it's got no involvement in it. That's why Thomas ends up being happy at the end of Duck's story. That's why he sees Duck returning home. Why? Because Davis Diesel carried a lie. Right? So he carried all the lies and all the paperwork and all that in the office. His wife was outside on the platform doing her work, right? And then you have Daisy on top. What happens? Every time Daisy does this, Daisy does that, what are you gaining? Respect? Honesty? Trust? No. She's been very verbally and physically abusive. So when you realise she's done that on so many people, that she said, "Okay, I'm gonna make someone take the blame for all of it." Do you know what? It's not going to work this time because I wasn't always on the platform. So if I wasn't always on the platform, what happens to the Norfolk Railway when they've been told a lie, a deceit, a dishonesty? The setup will clear things up. There's only three suspects, but it's not my mother, it's not myself, and it's not Duck. Work it out. There's three suspects, and I'll just give it to you. Daisy, Davis Diesel, and his wife. So work it out. Three people, and try and blame three people to get round things. They can't target Duck, so he's out. They can't target my mother. That's another one out. And then they got me. What did they do with me? They blamed me good and proper. But I could prove that I wasn't always on the platform. First of all, most importantly, all the setup was aimed at me. But I never done it. That's the catch. So when you think, just ask the people that got booted out, volunteers or employees, They will tell you, no, it wasn't the Stephen Topham Hatt the third's fault. They will go and say it's Daisy's fault and his and Davis Diesel and his wife. Three people. So work it out. So when Who Harket got the wrong message, they screwed up. The setup was already there in black and white. I hope that gives that a little bit of understanding of why these individuals go to arms and length to know how to set up a fat controller. I said it's a lie, it's a deceit, and at the end of the day, they make me take the blame for everything they done wrong. So don't blame me for this one, because I've just been honest with you. The setup was done by Daisy, Davis Diesel, and his wife. Thank you very much.